Just 2 months ago, President Uhuru Kenyatta celebrated the opening of the biggest infrastructure project since Kenya's independence, a railway connecting the capital Nairobi and the port of Mombasa. It was supposed to help cement Kenyatta's campaign promise to create 1.3 million jobs, reduce the cost of living, as well as reduce income inequalities. But rising government debt, skyrocketing food prices and corruption have overshadowed this year's election campaign.
We're tired of corruption because our kids are in debt. I'm a father, my kids are in debt. Most people have no jobs, not because there's no money in this country, but because the money that is supposed to create employment is being stolen.
More than 80% of Kenyans are under the age of 35, and nearly a quarter of them are out of a job. Earlier this year, Kenya was hit by its worst drought in 3 decades. It led to soaring food prices that pushed inflation to its highest level in 5 years. And according to the United Nations, nearly half of the population lives on less than $2 a day, with more than 3 million people at the risk of starvation. Kenya has been one of Africa's top performers over the past decade, with economic growth averaging 5.2% a year. But some analysts still think the country in many ways has been driven in the opposite direction.
We have had politics intrude into this vibrant economy. First of all, the entire political system costs too much. But the pay, the amount of government bureaucrats, the cost of running that government, the overspending, the corruption that's involved in there, it's a huge drag on the real economy.
Kenyan elections are traditionally fought along racial lines. 10 years ago, the East African country saw its worst post-election crisis, where more than 1,100 people were killed in inter-ethnic fighting. As many as 600,000 people were displaced from their homes. But after the constitution was revised in 2010, the winner-takes-all system was abolished. It also gave more power to county governments. Analysts say that devolution has given some of the counties more money and power, which has led to some tangible improvements.
I would say the strongest points are probably the infrastructure spend and rollout. Kenya is a transit state. It's the route to the sea for multiple countries. Its key geopolitical advantage is the fact that everybody has to come through Kenya to get to the sea in global markets.
The opposition in these elections is trying to attract voters based on the need to face the country's economic challenges instead of just voting based on ethnicity. But the problem is vast, and many of Kenya's poor remain convinced nothing will change. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Let's get more now on the economies of both Rwanda and Kenya. To do that, I'm joined by TRT World's Africa reporter Fidelis Mbah, who is in Nairobi. Fidelis, thank you for joining us. I hear you're in quite a noisy place there in Nairobi. Hope you can hear me well. Fidelis, you've reported from both places extensively. Let's start with Rwanda, though. What are people over there looking for in terms of economic policies from their next leader?
Well, for many Rwandans, they believe that a program that would actually affect especially those at the lower rank of the society would favor them more, even though many people seem to be happy with President Kagame's economic policy. But they feel that it's been more favoring mostly the elites, because some of the major projects are in Kigali, the commercial capital, and also the commercial hub of the country. And they feel that some of these developments should go to rural areas where there's still so many people who are impoverished, who are just struggling to eke out a living.
So how do the main candidates aim to address those issues that you're talking about?
Paul Kagame has talked about consolidating on the achievements he's recorded in the last years he's been in office. But the opposition have also been arguing that they should be given a chance, given that they are promising projects that would affect directly people who are in rural areas, people who can't afford the accommodation that are in Kigali, because like for housing, it's been very difficult for many Rwandans, especially those in Kigali, because the houses seem to be overpriced, and they're saying that a more populace kind of programs that would impact directly on the rural populace would do them more good, which is what has been their selling point ahead of the elections.
Let's turn to where you are now in Kenya, in Nairobi. What is uppermost in people's minds over there? As Mobin Nasir said in his package, food shortages are a big issue. What else are people thinking about there?
Apart from the fact that many Kenyans would want to feed properly, this issue of unemployment, there's also been the issue of land. Land has been a major problem here. Many people can't afford the high cost of houses, especially in the capital, Nairobi, where I am at the moment, and even the another commercial hub, Mombasa. So they are asking for government to make housing more affordable. There's so many people who are unemployed and who can't even survive on their own, and there's no policy in place really to take care of unemployed people. So that has been a major talking point. And also the rent has been very high, which is why the opposition candidate Raila Odinga has been campaigning that when he gets elected into office, that he will want to ensure that the cost of housing is considerably brought down so that those people who are just the middle class and the poor can be able to afford decent housing even in urban centers.
Fidelis, we're going to be checking back in with you as we head nearer the elections a little bit later on this month. But for now, Fidelis Mbah in Nairobi, thank you so much.